Episode 4, Preternatural interviews with Quinn here. He has quite the tale to tell. First-hand account of, I believe, what you call a mimic, and what, because this is the second time around on the story, because we had technical difficulties on my end, and I apologize about that. I was able to kind of process the story a bit. And all I'm going to say before I let Quinn take off with the story is, sounds like some sort of a skinwalker episode to me. And episode 4, the mimic. Quinn, take it away.
All right. So story happened back when I was about 14 years old. And at the time, I think I was in middle school. And I was thinking about it since the first time we talked about it. Actually, my athletic class was like right after lunch. And of course, 7th period, I get on the bus and go home. But at the time, my sister was about 16, 17 years old. So every now and then, if she wasn't busy, she'd, we live 5 miles west of town out in the middle of nowhere. So, sometimes she'd let me ride in her car instead of riding the bus or whatever. So it was one of those days where she couldn't pick me up and take me home after class. So I rode the bus home. And when I got to the house, I mean, it was just pretty much like any other day. I was alone until usually my dad would get off work about 4:30. And then my mom would come home at a later time or whatever. Or I think she was out on errands. That's why she wasn't home. Well, I think it was a storm. So that was another reason why I was at the house. My dad was a lineman. So he was out working past what time he was supposed to be home. So when I got to the house, I was all alone. And so just to pass the time, I decided to go down to the creek for a few hours. That was about 200-300 yards away from the house. And so started to kind of see the sun was going down the horizon a little bit. So I was like, it's about time I go home. Walk back up to the house. I was filthy, covered in dirt and mud and all, I don't know what kind of, I was thinking I was building a tree house or something. So went back up in the house and then was taking a shower. And then about that, I think it was probably about 5:30ish, I hear my sister's car. I think she was driving a Nissan Maxima at the time. So she pulled into the carport and then heard the door close, heard her walk up into the house. And then, she started walking to the back of the house. And then she, what I thought was my sister was walked into the bathroom area. And the shower curtain I had wasn't completely, the word I was looking for last time was opaque.
Okay. So it was translucent, somewhere in between opaque and transparent.
Yeah, it wasn't like 100%. You could kind of see like the outline of whatever was on the outside of the bathroom, the shower curtain.
So you were able to see your sister on the other side of the shower curtain, but you still had some privacy at the same time.
Yeah. And I was like, "What are you doing?" She was like, "Oh, I came back to the house to get something. I'm going to go back to so-and-so's house. Do you want anything from town to eat? And because it's going to be a while before, mom and dad get home." And I said, "Yeah, just give me a hamburger and fries and stuff like that." And she's like, "Okay." So heard her walk out of the house, get back in her car and drive off. And then finally I forget what I think to pass the time after that, I think I was playing video games or watching TV or something like that. And then finally about 7 o'clock rolls around, everybody gets home and hadn't eaten yet. And my sister gets out of the car and she doesn't have anything in her hands. I kind of looked at her. I was already kind of aggravated. I was like, where's my hamburger and fries at? And she was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "When you came home, you said that you were going to grab something from town for me." And she was like, "I never came home."
I never came home.
Yeah.
Whoa. Oh, wow.
Well, but the deal was that usually, she was covering her butt. I didn't say that in front of my parents. You know, she was out.
Oh,
We were outside. My parents were inside the house. So I was waiting for her to get home. And she was like, I never came home. And I was like, yeah, you did. You came home at about 5:30ish. You said you were going to get something, and then you were driving back into town. I think she had a base because I think she did the books for like our sports teams and stuff. Just kept track.
okay.
She's like, yeah. So she was like, no, I never came home. And I was like, then why did I hear you walk into the house and explain what was going on, ask me if I wanted something to eat, heard you walk out of the house and drive back home or drive back into town? She's like, I promise you I didn't come back home today. This is the first time I've been home since class was over.
And so, like, when you interacted with what you thought was her, it wasn't just, it didn't seem like a disembodied voice or and a vapor.
No,
It was like an actual, you could feel the
I
presence of
mean,
someone being
my,
there.
yeah, my sister had, long brown hair, and she was about the same height as me. I mean, it was pitch perfect. Like the Nissan Maxima have a two-tone door, a jar tone,
Yeah.
and I heard that outside. And then the house that we were living in was a trailer house, and then the floors were hollow, because the house is raised. So like I heard the footsteps going through the house, hear the door close, everything. It just,
So all those details were there,
yeah,
including the silhouette of your sister.
yeah,
And you said a storm was closing in, so that might be something to it with all that electrical energy and
yeah,
lower barometric pressure. So could be
yeah,
something to it, but it also sounds an awful lot like what Native Americans call skinwalkers. Like they
yeah,
could they could embody and they can mimic sounds, audio
yeah,
perfectly, and then even change their bodies
yeah,
to fit the shape of or silhouette of someone or something else. So
yeah.
that's pretty intense, man. And before we got started, you were saying something about the just the electromagnetic nature of where you live in the rural area
Yeah.
where you're at.
I mean, pretty much where I live, like my closest neighbor was my grandparents, and then their closest neighbor was my uncle and my nephew, or my cousins and my aunt. Uh, so me and my cousin, and of course my sister, are all kind of like the same age. I think I'm in the middle, and I think it was a few years ago. I just texted my cousin just out of the blue because something spooky happened. And I was like, man, do you believe in like the paranormal, and the supernatural stuff and all that? He was like, yeah. He was like, I've seen some stuff out here just, out by myself alone, which pretty much happened to me. And it just always, it's so dead quiet out there. Like, I
Before
don't,
an event, before something
well,
happens, or just
I
always.
mean, it's always quiet. It was always quiet out there.
And do you
But,
mind if we mention in general where you're at in America?
oh, yeah. So basically, like in Oklahoma, where our houses resided at was the highest electromagnetic activity in Oklahoma. Yeah, I think it's like maybe like 2 square miles,
Okay.
and then it just kind of like goes back to normal.
So kind of like a Bermuda triangle, like a Bermuda
Yeah,
triangle. There's an Oklahoma triangle.
yeah, maybe.
That's what it
but
sounded like.
but like always, like all the spooky stuff that always happened would just be like with animals and stuff like that, just kind of like going out and about and being discombobulated and stuff.
Like
Just
what kind of animals? You're mentioning owls. Is that some?
owls and just bobcats. They just do strange stuff, like coming up, like acting like they want to get into the house. It just growing up, had all kinds of different friends and stuff like that. And this guy came over. I think we were like in like third or fourth grade. We used to have like a big old shop lot. So we were outside playing football or playing catch until it got dark, and all of a sudden the great horned owl landed on top of the electrical pole, and like he immediately got freaked out, and he like started hyperventilating and stuff like that. And then after, because he went back in the house and he was so, just so tore up about it and stuff. His mom had to come out and get him, drove out into the middle of nowhere and came and got him and took him home. And then, before he left, my mom and his mom were talking about everything that happened there. She was explaining to my mom, when a Native American sees a owl, it's supposed to be a bad omen. So something bad's supposed to follow after they see it. So at the time, his grandmother wasn't doing too good health-wise, so he got a little spooked about that.
Understand.
And then, but after that, like owls always kind of like freak me out a little bit. So
yeah, multiple interactions with different types of owls, from what I hear.
Yeah. So it was probably like 3 years ago. I think I was coming home late from somebody's house, or maybe I was coming from a bar or something like that. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I got my high beams in and I'm about to pull into the carport. And there's a type of owl sitting in this almost dead tree. And I've never seen this owl before, or this type of owl before. And it's just like flat face. And just kind of like, I don't know, looked like you said, a gray alien.
Yeah.
And before that, I think it was like a couple days before that, I've been watching Ancient Aliens or whatever, so that already kind of had me jittery or whatever.
Yeah.
And so immediately after that, I texted my sister. She's a little more intelligent with, just being book smart and stuff. I was like, what type of owl was this? And I started explaining to her what it is. It was technically a barn owl, but it looks stark white. It was like my shirt, stark white. It was just creepy.
And they get pretty big. They get up to like what, 3 feet? Those barn owls.
The great horned owls get up to, they're pretty big. They're about 3 foot tall, I think, just sitting on a pole or whatever. But the barn owls are a little bit smaller. I think they're about 2 foot.
Oh, okay.
Maybe, or smaller.
Even smaller. Okay, so I'm just thinking, but that's pretty wild, man. Because a lot of those animals, like your Native American friend says, do connect up with like the spiritual world. Even people do ufology, I believe it's called. They see there's a correlation between the people with owls and owl encounters and owls around their houses and the great alien abduction type stuff.
Oh man, I couldn't go to sleep for like 2 weeks after I watched the Fifth Con with Mila Jovovich, because man, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about that movie.
Oh yeah,
because like I think she's interviewing the girl, and she's she's got her eyes closed and she's trying to remember. And the first time that she's freaking out, she sees like an image of an owl. And then they do another interview, and then like the owl morphs into a gray alien. Oh, man,
wow.
It freaks me out.
I need to check that out.
I
might have to lift some of that footage up for this content. But
it's pretty creepy.
Yeah, because there was like a Christopher Walken movie back in the day, and that was based on some real life stuff, at least interview wise, and that was heavy with the owl and alien juxtaposition. But the other thing about owls is it's also connected with like moon goddess worship, and Isis. So there's there's this, which is witchcraft or what have you. But there's just so many intersections with that it's really interesting. And so I know you can't really speak for anyone else, but just briefly, I guess, have other people in your area experienced their own strange anomalies?
It's kind of funny you bring that up. We used to, uh, where my hometown is built up on a hill, and going down the road, it goes down an incline towards the north, and it's basically a floodplain to the north of this town. And where that floodplain is where this park is now. It's called Salton Park. But before that, that's actually where the town used to be. It used to be called McKnight, and it kept on flooding, so they moved the town up the hill. And Salton Park, though, especially growing up, being teenagers, being mischievous and stuff, everybody would talk about the deer lady.
Okay.
Yeah, it was that was pretty freaky too.
That's something I've heard about from a couple different perspectives, some anonymous, some otherwise. But elaborate for those of us that don't know them.
I don't know if she was supposed to have the human top half and a deer bottom half, or never really got a good look at her. But usually it was just like a female head with like antlers, and that's pretty much because she would dart in between the trees and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But basically, to see her, we would actually go out in the open and then start yelling profanities at the deer lady, and she'd come out. But deal was, what made it even creepier out there, there were these utility poles, and they had those orange glow lights.
Yeah.
So it had like that orange glow, creepy vibe to it already. So we go out there probably about, I don't know, midnight, 1 o'clock. And, all of a sudden you just kind of like see a head pop out behind a tree. And then probably about 20 yards away, the head pop out again and pop out from this side and down here and down here. And it'd go on till we just had enough of it and we were pretty much pissing our pants. But I want to say that was more, from what they've told me and stuff, that was more of a Native American type mythology stuff. So
okay, something else that was tied to the land.
But that was like a group
experience.
That happened with, that was anywhere from 5 to 20 people. Yeah, we go out there and do that. So this wasn't too much longer after the mimic thing happened. I think it was around the time when me and my friends were just started kind of party drinking a little bit.
Yeah.
People sneaking beer and stuff and alcohol to us. The guy's house that we were at was 2-story, and his bedroom had a door that went outside. It was the coolest thing ever. Growing up, I loved that house so much just because, like, you open the door and it goes out to a balcony. No guardrails, nothing, and then you can just see the streets and stuff. And we had some, lounge chairs up there. We were hanging out, drinking and stuff like that. I didn't have too much to drink. I had enough just to get me sleepy. So I ended up falling asleep before everybody else, and they just left me out on the lounge chair outside. I wasn't too happy with them about that later on.
Yeah.
But so I fell asleep, and I started having this dream or nightmare that, of course, I was out on the balcony asleep, and I don't know what woke me up, but I remember waking up and looking out to the left of me, and there's this big, ominous, like 10-foot tall, I don't know, top hat wearing guy, and he had like glowing eyes. And I don't know if he was 10 feet tall. He might have been 6 feet tall, but he was floating 4 foot up from the ground.
Okay, but he was definitely Wearing a hat, though, right?
Yeah, and he had like this long, ominous cape that flowed to each side of the street, and then you could kind of see like a glinting, like shining from the street lights and stuff, shining off his fingernails, his hands and arms and stuff were like really gangly. Couldn't see the. It was kind of like a combination of. You ever seen the anime Hellsing?
No, but I know you're talking about like kind of like the long, gangly,
Yeah,
wild-haired, gothically
yeah,
dressed, hatted guy kind of
yeah.
thing.
Looked like a mashup between Dracula from Hellsing and then Spawn's cape
Oh,
from the
really?
movie. Yeah,
So,
that's
so he was like elongated in an exaggerated sense. Is that what you're
yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
but
So,
the deal was I couldn't see any detail of the face except for the eyes, and I could kind of see like some Victorian era like collars and stuff, but I couldn't see anything below that in
and then
detail.
and
But
then
then,
and then a top hat for sure, right?
yeah, definitely the top hat.
That
And
it that is a reoccurring theme, man. As much as you may not know it, I don't know if you know that, but yeah,
yeah,
my first episode was an experience between me and my first guest, and it was the hatted like gothic era man,
yeah,
and
yeah,
elongated
I
long
watched
arms.
that one.
Okay, cool. So there's definitely some triangulation here. It's
And
some sort of energy form.
yeah, and I he wasn't making a noise at all. He was just floating. Like you couldn't even hear the sound of his cape or nothing. And he doesn't even look up at me or anything. I think he's probably like, I don't know, 50 yards away. So he floats down the street, and then he gets right at the end of the sidewalk that just happens to be right in front of me. And he stops, looks up, the street light shines on his face, and there's this evil grin. And of course, in the background, I can hear like the party noises going on and stuff.
Yeah.
And so he floats into the house, hear the door open, floats into the house, and the door closes, and the music just stops. Everybody just stops talking and partying, the music stops. I go downstairs, and there's nobody there at all. So I think there's probably about 8 of us that ended up going to this guy's house. Well, of course, I jar awake, and I'm like shaking everybody. I'm like, what in the heck is going on? Because it was like a surreal dream nightmare. And yeah, they were like, knew I was pretty shooken up about it or whatever. And I think it was only like 3 or 4 o'clock. And like, I didn't want to go back to sleep. And then,
And the music was still off when you woke him up.
no, yeah. The music was off, and the deal was my buddy. There was too many people on the bed, and there's too many people on the floor. So the first guy I seen, his legs were up, like yeah, like so. Here's his legs, and here's his torso, and his back laying on the ground. So I was like, oh my goodness, like that wasn't normal. So that like really freaked me out. And so I'm like over there just like trying to wake him up and stuff. So, I started describing the nightmare to them, and they coined the name Top Hat Man. And then, so pretty much for the rest of the school year, every now and then, my friends would draw a sketch of Top Hat Man just to kind of like freak me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, then fast forward, I don't know, that was probably like 2001. So fast forward to like 2017, 18. I'm over at a friend's house, and we're trying to find a movie on Netflix to watch, and I see the Babadook, and I was like, "What is that? What is that? What is that on the screen?"
It's like I've seen that before.
Yeah. And she was like, "Have you watched that?" And I was like, "No." Like I started freaking out. I was like, "No, I'm never gonna watch that movie." And just like the cover of the film, the box art or whatever you want to call it. Like I will never watch that movie. I'd probably, if I had a gun to my head, I'd probably try to take the bullet instead of watch that movie. There's just no way I'm going to watch it.